Code monkey get up, get coffee. Code monkey go to job. Code monkey have boring meeting with boring manager Rob. Rob say code monkey very diligent, but his output stink. His code not functional or elegant. What do code monkey think? Code monkey think maybe manager wanna write login page himself. Code monkey not say it out loud. Code monkey not crazy, just proud. Code monkey like Fritos. Code monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code monkey very simple man. Big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code monkey like you. Code monkey like you.
What's new, Dino Dudes? It's me, the Media Raptor, and welcome to the 250th episode of the Media Raptor Reviews. Yep. I did it. Came back, pushed through a few more reviews, and here we are. Episode 250. You might wonder why am I back? Well, I enjoy making reviews and screw Kappa, that's why. Also, if you're new around here, and believe me, there's a lot of new people since we last did one of these reviews, not just the reaction and reviews, but with this franchise, let me fill you in. Years and years ago, about, I believe 5 years ago maybe, I made a review on the Toxic Avenger for the 50th episode of the Media Raptor Reviews. It was a big celebration about how I had come this far, I did a giveaway, it was a lot of fun. For the 150th episode, I reviewed the Toxic Avenger Part II, which was just as good as the first one, if not better in some ways. So, for the 250th episode, we're gonna watch the Toxic Avenger 3, The Last Temptation of Toxie, or Toxic Avenger Part III, The Last Temptation of Toxie. I know barely anything about this movie. I've seen the trailer, and I have been told that Parts 3 and 4 are really, really bad, and not like in the fun Troma way, like really make you regret watching them bad, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to judge that for myself. So, I don't really know what to say. If you're expecting some big speech about how I'm so thankful for all of you for bringing me to 250 episodes, don't worry. I'm working on the 1,000 subscriber special review, and believe me, it's going to be a good one. And I have a whole thing lined up for that. I'm just thankful you guys decided to stick around and keep watching these videos, or go back and watch my old videos, or even just leaving a comment here or there. That means more than I can possibly explain, and I thank you for that. So, how about we stop beating around the bush, and we dive into tonight's movie. I don't have a physical copy, so I rented it on YouTube, of The Toxic Avenger Part III, The Last Temptation of Toxie. So,
Shut the hell up!
I never really thought about this being a thing, but I have never seen Jewish movie people who run a movie rental company run by Jewish people. I don't know why. I know they're trying to make some sort of joke, but I think that's kind of an interesting idea.
Top 5, the Apocalypse Self-Improvement Tapes from Apocalypse Inc.
Also, I love the fact that the Tromaville video rental store is full of nothing but Troma videos and Troma posters, and it's really minor, but I love the kind of humor. Okay, so we're having our first big fight scene, and I already see a pretty big issue with this. The music does not fit. Now, admittedly, it has been a while since I've watched the previous 2 Toxic Avenger movies, so maybe these did have it as well. But there's this upbeat, almost like what you would hear at the beginning of a Saturday morning cartoon sort of thing. And when he's ripping dudes' intestines out and beating the living daylights out of them and stuff like that, it just does not fit. And yeah, I think it also has to do with the fact that the effects are not as good as they were in the previous 2, at least to start. So, okay, I'm not gonna lie, as weird as this movie is and kind of the rough start it's off to, having the Toxic Avenger work as an IRS agent, even just as a throwaway joke, is hilarious. And that's really something about this movie, is a lot of these like weird throwaway jokes are like laugh out loud funny. I just hope the story gets better. So you know what? Something I can say is the guy playing the chairman, who I'm pretty sure is also the devil. I'm gonna turn down that because I don't think anyone wants to hear that. Who plays the chairman, and all the background actors, they're just having the time of their lives, and it just makes me smile because it's just so weird but fun. So I hate the fact that I have to say this, but this movie and the company Apocalypse Inc. and like all the really, really horrible stuff they're doing, like child slavery, just being like cartoonishly over the top villains. The amount of, I guess, real life comparisons you could make are higher than you would expect. So I think I figured it out. This movie wants to be a Troma movie, and yet it doesn't commit in the right places. The idea is inherently an interesting one about the Toxic Avenger being, like, you know, working for the bad guys, blah blah blah. But even if they just wanted to do like that and then make him dumb until he realizes at the end, oh wait, these are the bad guys, he isn't really doing what other Troma movies do. Like, there isn't like a lot of excessive gore, there isn't like a ton of mutilation, there was at the beginning, but there's not really a whole lot of like just shock value or dumb violence like the rest of them. It feels neutered, and yet they speak and act as if it's like an hard R Troma film, which it almost is, but at least as for right now, it's missing out on that one important part, which is making it somehow shocking and over the top. It hasn't done that, in my opinion, at least. So massive props I can give this movie. The costuming on the devil, I guess is supposed to be this guy, looks awesome. It's all done practically, and it looks seamless. If there's one thing Troma is great at, it's practical makeup, and this shows why. I'm happy that I can talk good about this movie, because I really want it to be good. And that makeup is disgusting, cool, and unique, and yeah. Okay, I can recommend this movie solely on the fact alone that you get to watch the Toxic Avenger piss on the devil. Literally. It is hilarious, and I love that. Like, that is the kind of weird bizarreness I expect from Troma movies, and I'm so glad I at least got that. Well, that was the Toxic Avenger Part III, The Last Temptation of Toxie. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, I think is the best way to put it. I'm just gonna mute this and jump ahead a bit so I can check something real quick. Okay. So, yeah, the movie really didn't get better the way I was hoping it would. It kind of just stayed the same weird, monotonous, kind of boring, until it just sort of decided to come to an end and just stagger to an end, I guess. And the sad thing is, the writing is by and large the only thing that's really wrong with this movie, aside from some editing stuff, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but the writing is the biggest problem with this movie. Hang on, where's my... put that drink? Oh, there it is. Sorry, one sec. Which is weird because one of the best parts of the past two Toxic Avenger movies was the writing. It was witty, it was offensive, it was funny, it was creative. And here, like I said during the reaction portion, I think I know what the issue is. it doesn't commit to what it is. Let me explain, and this is kind of a history lesson for anyone out there who has not watched Troma movies before. This is also a warning to anybody who has not watched Troma movies before. Troma has no limits, they have no restrictions, they have no sense of dignity, they have no regard for what is considered ethical, politically correct, or even, clean. They are crude, rude, disturbing, violent, vulgar, crass, twisted, anti-PC, offensive to everybody, and they make it work. For 45 years, they have been making these movies that essentially have attacked, blind people, midgets, people of different cultures, people of different religions, and yet it worked. Because the one thing they did that especially helped with the whole so bad it's good angle is they committed to it. They went, okay, this is going to be kind of offensive, go full force with it. Do not think twice about it. In this one, there's a couple jokes here and there that are kind of making fun of people, but whenever it seems like they're about to finally deliver a punchline or maybe pay off on a joke they've been building up, the movie kind of goes, It's not a sense of, oh yeah, we don't want to be wrong anymore. Like, it's very clear it's still Troma. It's still violent. It's still gory. It's still Troma. But the writing didn't commit to it for some reason. And I don't know if there was an issue between... Because it was written and directed by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hertz, so I don't know if there was an issue when they were adapting the screenplay to actually filming it. Maybe it has to do with the editing. Maybe a good number of the jokes and stuff were cut out of the movie. Or maybe because nobody can make great films for 45 years, this just happens to be one of the duds in Troma's line. I'm kind of believing it's that. But at the end of the day, there is still some good in it. Like I said, there's a number of jokes in here that are genuinely laugh out loud hilarious. Visual gags, running jokes, a lot of the funniest jokes are not spoken, but it's done either through physical comedy or just like blink and you'll miss it in the background. It is hilarious at times. It is also downright bizarre and weird at times. Like I said, the Toxic Avenger pisses on the devil at one point. There's that. There's multiple weird dream sequences. The Toxic Avenger becomes a yuppie at one point, starts working for the IRS. Like, the thing is, all these ideas really could still work. This plot could still work about the Toxic Avenger inadvertently working for Apocalypse Inc. and selling his soul to the devil. All of that could work. The issue is, there wasn't the weird, gross-out, gore-fest humor Troma is known for. Take a look at the first two Toxic Avenger movies. They are full of really weird kills, graphic violence, disturbing imagery. This one has barely any blood in it. It has weird slime and weird liquidy stuff, but there isn't a whole lot of actual blood. And that's kind of what I think would have made this movie better if when the Toxic Avenger is working for Apocalypse Inc., when it's yeah, I was doing my part to help rehabilitate people to see the way of Apocalypse Inc. If he was walking around and was straight up stab somebody or something like that, a joke like that with the extreme violence would still would have made this plot work. But there isn't any of that, and you keep waiting for it to happen because that's what the Toxic Avenger has done for 2 movies now. And you find yourself sitting in this movie for an hour and 40 minutes, which is another problem, waiting for the good stuff to come back, because every now and then there's something really funny, there's something really creative, there's something really entertaining. Then, long periods of nothing. It even gets subverting expectations downright. For example, bit of a spoiler, but this movie's old, so yeah. Claire, who was played by Phoebe Ligley, I'm mispronouncing that, the Toxic Avenger's girlfriend, is blind, has been since the first movie. She gets her sight back. The first thing she sees is the doctor who performed the surgery, and you're expecting her to be oh, Melvin, you're beautiful, and then see the Toxic Avenger freak out, have to deal with all that. No. She starts screaming to the high heavens when she sees a regular-looking person and has no issues with the Toxic Avenger. I love that. That is funny. And stuff like that makes this movie not a chore to sit through, because there is enough stuff to at least be entertaining, but it makes it all the more not disappointing, I guess disappointing, because you keep looking at it and thinking, man, if they just built on this, if they just pushed a little further, there would be so much more better about this movie. Like I said, it's also an hour and 40 minutes, and that leads to a big issue, especially with the editing, because a good chunk of this film is weird close-ups of people screaming and flailing their arms around rather than, doing anything. And it's really distracting, and honestly gets pretty annoying after a while. This movie has, I actually looked it up while I was watching the movie, this movie has not been well received by fans of the Toxic Avenger. A lot of people decry this movie, a few people really like it. I am going to have to be in the former camp. I want to like it. There's a lot in here that is likable, like the characters, for example. The Toxic Avenger, Claire, the chairman, and the devil, like the chairman who turns out to be the devil. All the associates, all these weird characters. There's one gang of 4 people named Warner Bros., Paramount, Miramax, and I want to say MGM or Disney, who attack a video store. Like, all these characters that show up in this movie are bizarre, weird, funny, and even though some of them are on screen for like 5 minutes at the most, you want to see more of them. Even the whole Toxic Avenger becoming doing the whole oh, he forgot who he is. It makes him out to be kind of unlikable, but at the same time, it's only for such a short amount of time that you quickly bounce back when you realize that's what they wanted. So again, I can't really complain about that because it's just the story working. It's good writing. But like I said, especially as somebody who loves these movies, there's not enough commitment. Now, I'm going to go ahead and spoil what I think about it all in all. If you're a fan of the Toxic Avenger, you're going to watch it. Sorry. Plain and simple, you're going to watch it. But if you didn't like the first 2 Toxic Avenger movies but just thought they were okay, you are not going to enjoy this. If you have never seen a Troma movie, do not start with this. If you're not a fan of B movies, well, first of all, you're on the wrong channel. Second of all, Troma is the wrong company for you. And third of all, skip this movie. I can recommend it to people who enjoy Troma movies, who love the first 2 Toxic Avenger movies, but I don't think you'll love it as much as the first 2, but it might just be sort of you can claim you've seen all of them. Like the reason why I'm going to have to buy it eventually on Blu-ray so I can say I have all 4, otherwise that'll bug me forever. But okay, the writing is not the best. It really feels like they had 4 or 5 plots and kind of mashed them all together with all these weird ideas of Apocalypse Inc., then the devil, then his girlfriend getting her sight back, then the devil and the Toxic Avenger fighting in a video game. Sort of, not as cool as it sounds. And it feels like it's a bunch of episodes of a TV show put together, which is weird because they already did that with Toxic Crusaders. But I'm not here to talk about that. Let's talk about what's good about this movie. I already mentioned there are some jokes that are laugh out loud, funny. The characters are still written pretty well, although some of them are admittedly dumber than before, but that's kind of the point that's kind of a plot point, so whatever. And the acting is pretty good, actually. A lot of these actors, like Ron Fazio, John Altamura, who was both the voice of Toxie and the guy who played it in the costume, do a really good job, not only giving the Toxic Avenger a voice, but under all that makeup and all the mask and everything, is really expressive and emotive. That's one thing I liked about the mask, is it looks gross, but at the same time, you're not trapped with only one expression. You can actually see it actually emotes as he acts. Phoebe Legally, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, is hilarious as Claire. Rick Collins, who is Apocalypse Inc. chairman and the devil, he steals the show. He is hamming up every single scene to the point when I'm honestly afraid my cholesterol is going to rise just by watching this. That was a terrible joke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But he is having the time of his life. He is loud. He is loud, and normally that would bug me when an actor is just shouting their lines to try and be cheesy, but he nails it perfectly. He is loud, he is boisterous, and he is just having too much fun with it to really ever want to stop. And every time he's on screen, I just had a huge grin on my face because he says so many weird things, acts so out there, and is just so entertaining to watch. He's kind of like Nicolas Cage in a way, but a little bit more restrained. That's kind of weird to say, but it is what it is, folks. Also, all the other actors do a range from pretty good to not really. Most of the actors do actually manage to nail the whole cheesy acting kind of thing without it sounding too bad, but some of the actors do sound kind of bad. But then again, you know, some of them are kids and some of them are just extras, so it doesn't really make a difference in the movie in the grand scale of the movie. Now, the best part about pretty much any Troma movie are the special effects. Troma has never been a company to really adapt with CG. They have always loved practical effects. And buckets and buckets and buckets and buckets and buckets and buckets of blood. I am not exaggerating there. If you have a stomach... sorry. I don't know what's with eating these Triscuits, but I'm belching like crazy tonight. If you have the stomach for it, watch Poultry Guys Night of the Chicken Dead. Do not watch it if you're easily offended or squeamish. That thing is one of the goriest movies I've ever seen, and it's kind of amazing. It's also a musical. I'm not joking. And sadly, though, like I said, there isn't a whole lot of gore in this movie, which is quite disappointing, because the previous two had a decent amount of gore, or just a decent amount of kills. And part of the fun of it was like the goofiness of the kills. Like in the first one, he lifts up a bunch of weights, shoves a dude's head under it, drops them, and you see the top head of his half get crushed. In this one, when he drives a mop through a dude's head, you see it coming towards his face, and it cuts to the other people reacting. You don't even see like a prosthetic head with the mop through it. You never see the aftermath. So the kills are disappointing, but the makeup is great. A few times the Toxic Avenger does noticeably look kinda off, like some of the makeup may have worn off or been washed off or something like that. But aside from that, the mask still looks great, the sets and the props look great and cheesy. The devil at the end looks really cool, it's a unique take on it, and it's just a cool design. And when the devil does come out, he spends like a good 2 minutes, and I'll get to that in a minute, kind of coming out of this dude's chest, and it's all done practically. It looks great. And like when the Toxic Avenger, spoiler, gets turned back into Melvin briefly, you see like his arms start to like bulge out and like burst, and his head like contorts and shrinks and then starts melting away, and you see like his skull and jaw hanging down, and all that looks great. It's kind of gross, and that's the point, but it looks great. So yeah, unsurprisingly, the effects are probably a highlight of this movie. But then again, it's a Troma movie. I would be shocked if they had bad special effects. Although I have heard some of them are not that good, but whatever. The Toxic Avenger has always had great effects. Now, this whole I'll talk about that in a minute thing. This has to do a bit with writing and a bit with acting, but there are multiple times where essentially a joke or a reaction or something is happening and it keeps repeating the same thing over and over and over, or cutting back and forth for like a good 2 minutes. Like I said, when the devil is coming out of this guy, it takes about 2.5 minutes for it to actually happen. The whole time he's like just kind of spasming on the ground, people are freaking out, and the camera keeps cutting all over the place. If it was to serve a joke, maybe that would have worked, but it just drags on, and I was really getting bored by 30 seconds in. Same with a number of jokes, like characters are supposed to say something or react to something or look around or just stuff like that, but it takes forever for it actually to get to the punchline that it ruins the joke. The editing in this movie really could have used some more touching up. There are good chunks of this movie that could have just been cut altogether. The movie is just a bit too long. And I think the part of the reason why it's as long as it is like I said, because of all these weird added extended cuts of people freaking out or reacting or stuff like that. And it's not helping the film. If anything, it's greatly damaging the film. But that's just my opinion. Maybe you feel different about it. But the effects still do look good. Like when they drive a bus off a cliff and they actually drop the bus, it looks cool. And one thing they do with editing that I think is kind of funny and a bit charming is they do a lot of reverse cuts. When they would drop a mannequin down somewhere, they reverse the film so it looks like he's jumping up or flying up. It's always really cheesy and really noticeable that it's not like really the actor or even a stunt double. But you know what? That's the kind of cheesy charm I love from Troma, so I'm totally letting that pass. It's downright delightful in a weird way. Music, again, I talked about this during the actual reaction. Multiple scenes when they're having a fight or the Toxic Avenger is like, you know, in the middle of an action scene. There's like this bright, happy, cheery, upbeat music that just does not fit with the movie itself and really takes away from it. Now, sometimes the music is pretty good, like the Toxic Avenger theme song is really catchy. The ending credits song was actually pretty good. But the actual score itself really kind of does sometimes be almost detrimental to the movie itself unintentionally. So at the end of the day, can I recommend Toxic Avenger Part III, The Last Temptation of Toxie? Yes. Only if you're a Troma fan, though. If you like Troma movies, if you like the Toxic Avenger movies, you've probably already seen it. But if you haven't, go watch the other ones first. Then if you want to, watch this one. It really is only... It's not bad, but it's also not good. Like, I can't really decry it and like hate it and say it's the worst thing I've seen, but it's also not something I'm like feeling the need for everyone to run out and watch. Really, I can only really give it for both entertainment and quality, so overall I can only give it 2 Raptor Claws out of 4, and that's generous. I was kind of sitting at 1.5 Raptor Claws for a long while, but there is enough B-movie charm to kind of make it push it up slightly, so it's a 2 Raptor Claws out of 4. But it is disappointing. I loved the first 2 Toxic Avenger movies and still do. This, I might watch again someday, but I'm not feeling the need to, like, you know, throw it on whenever I'm bored like I do with the Toxic Avenger Parts 1 and 2. Those were just bizarre, charming, funny. This has some of that, but not enough to save it. So, kind of a disappointment that's how we had to spend the 250th episode, but at the same time, 250 episodes, who cares? I cannot put into words how happy I am that I've actually made it this far, and that I have over 1,000 subscribers, and that you guys actually watch me for some reason. But it really does make me happy, and the fact that some of my videos have as many views as they do shocks me to this day. Like the Sharktopus review and the Mr. Conductor's Gold Dust reaction video, like, why do those have as many views as they do? I'm even agreeing with the people who are like, why does this have so many views? I'm like, yeah, why does it? I don't know. Regardless, Dino Dudes, coming soon is going to be the 1,000 subscriber special. We're returning to a franchise that I absolutely love and yet hate at the same time. And I only have 3 words to give you for what that movie's going to be. Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. So until next time, Dino Dudes, this has been the Media Raptor for the 250th time, saying keep cool, and I'll see all you Dino Dudes around. Later. Thank you. All of you.